going to start the recording. So welcome again to the Polk County Real Estate Investors Association, where we are located in Polk County, Florida, and we are so excited to have Bob Vieira as our guest speaker tonight. Bob is the founder and owner of the fastest growing short sale company in the USA. So this is a guy that knows what he's talking about. He has used short sales as a strategy and a tool to become uber successful. So we were so excited to have him here tonight to be able to go over this. The name of his company is Universal Short Sales, and he'll tell you more about that and where he's from and all that good stuff. So please, if you all will, and let me tell you, we haven't had anybody speak on short sales in years. So I am thrilled that we have this topic come up, and I'm excited to hear how this is fitting in this market right now. Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about it, and this is wonderful. So Bob Vieira, welcome, welcome, welcome. And Bob, Adrian, he needs to share his computer also so we can see all of his goodies. So Bob, there you go. Okay, super.
All right, give me one sec.
There you go. Yes, everybody, you should be able to see his computer there on the left so we can see his screen as he's talking tonight. Okay, awesome. Bob, so welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Very, very happy to be here, network with everybody, and hopefully help each other grow our businesses. So as Liz mentioned before, I'm going to be talking about short sales. We're going to cover a broad range of topics related to short sales. Pretty much, what does a short sale mean in real estate? How does it benefit, the buyer, the seller, so on and so forth. Now, as I'm going through the presentation, I want it to be, natural, and, you guys could just kind of jump in and we could have a dialogue back and forth. So as I'm going through my slides and I finish them up, feel free to just jump in wherever you see fit. And ask.
Oh, good. So it's okay for folks to ask you questions and that as you go along, Bob?
100%. And then if you have a question, you want to wait to the end, totally up to you. I have a slide there at the end. So we'll, you could fire away if you want them to.
And, I didn't say what I usually do, what Adrian and I usually say, which is about questions. I know when I first started coming to real estate meetings, I was too nervous to speak up and ask questions because I was actually, believe it or not, I was shy. I know I don't seem like that's possible, but I was. I was nervous. I thought everybody probably knew the answer to the question I had. So I didn't always ask. So now at PCREIA, Adrian and I, we make sure that we tell everybody, we want your question to be asked no matter what. So if you are shy to ask your question, you can direct that question over in the chat to either directly to Adrian or to myself. No one else will even see it. And then we will ask on your behalf. Also, if you don't want to interrupt Bob, you can put it over in the chat, and Adrian and I will be watching over there. So Bob, you don't even have to pay attention to that. We will make sure that you get those questions asked at some point in the evening. So please, everybody, we welcome you to ask all your questions. Thank you.
Okay. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. Fire away as I go. So my name's Bob Vieira. I own a company called Universal Short Sales. We're a full service short sale processing company. I'll get into a little bit later on. I'm going to elaborate on exactly what we do in the transaction. But obviously, as you could tell by now, we specialize in short sales. That's my company's niche. Really quick background on myself. I got started in real estate in 2014, right after I graduated college. Went to King's College right outside of, the Scranton area. It's the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area of Pennsylvania, northeastern PA. And I was born and raised in a small town called Old Forge, probably about 8,000 people. So small town upbringing, went to a tiny, college and graduated in 2014. Jumped into the corporate world selling commercial tires. I think that lasted all of 6 months, probably. I think I'm even being generous giving myself that, but I realized I had a love for real estate. So as I was working as a salesman, being a terrible employee, thinking about real estate 24/7, really just doing a crappy job, to be honest. I got my real estate license. Second, I got my license, I called my manager up the next day and I told him I won't be coming to work tomorrow. So as any new agent, as anybody new in the business, I just kind of threw my feet in the fire. So I knew I had to get listings immediately, pretty much to be able to eat and pay the rent. So, like any new agent, I was hustling around pretty much like a maniac, trying to get any listing I could, strum up any business. And it just so happened I landed on a bunch of short sales. Honestly, it was by accident. I was not targeting short sales. I didn't even know what a short sale was at the time, to be perfectly honest. Back then I told myself I got so many because of my great sales skills. But quite honestly, it was probably just because all the experienced agents who actually knew what they were doing wanted nothing to do with them. So, they just left them for newbies like me. So before you knew it, I started accumulating all these short sale listings. I probably had 7 or 8 going at once my first year, and I had zero clue what I was doing. I had no idea what a short sale was, so I was learning on the job. Because I was accumulating so much, I kind of just, figured out the process through trial and error, made tons of mistakes, learned on the job. But then after time, I started getting good at them. So as a young agent, I started getting recognized in my local market, which was Philadelphia, PA at the time, as a short sale expert. So before you knew it, I had literal real estate attorneys. I had, real estate agents that were experienced investors. They were coming to me to either consult with them on their short sales or, believe it or not, just kind of throw their, short sales at me because they didn't want to deal with them. So after dealing with it for a couple of years on the local level in Philly, I realized that there's a need for this. I realized that there's a space in the market here where I could carve out a niche for myself and just add more value to the market that I'm already adding, just on a wider scale. So fast forward to January 2019, I launched Universal Short Sales, which is the company I have now. And, it kind of just took off from there. My business model is very, very similar to what I was doing in Philly, except now I'm not acting as a real estate agent at all. And I just process short sales literally from start to finish. So that was the transition I made into the business. I went from being a local real estate agent to, launching Universal Short Sales a couple years later. So what exactly does Universal Short Sales do? We streamline the entire short sale process literally from start to finish. So that means, there's a lot of documentation prep. There's a mortgage assistance application that you have to submit with every short sale. So I have a system in place where I'll help the buyer fill out the application, very streamlined. We'll help them collect documents. We make everything nice and organized in a checklist because sometimes it gets crazy, it gets confusing and overwhelming for the seller. So I have a process that kind of scoops everything up and it simplifies for them exactly what we need and when we need it. Then there's a real estate agent. Almost every short sale has to be listed. It's a bank requirement. It has to be listed by a listing agent. So what I'll do is I have a process in place for that, where I'll help the seller, the distressed seller who's looking to do the short sale. I'll actually help them place a real estate agent within their local market. You'd be surprised. Most of these sellers, they're very overwhelmed. They're busy. Their life is just chaotic. So they don't have the desire, and typically they don't have the time to go out there and interview agents and pick the right one. So if there's not an agent in the deal, I even help them, put an agent in place, interview them, etc. When there's a buyer makes an offer. That's when the process gets very, very chaotic. It's very back and forth. I have a checklist for the buyer. I have a system for that as well, where, we let the buyer know upfront. We break down all the documents we need from them in the exact order we need them. and exactly how each document has to be structured. So, when we do so on and so forth, everything up until the short sale is actually approved. So we're very involved in the appraisal, everything up until that approval letter is issued. I have it broken down now, depending on the type of short sale it is. I have it broken down into a 15 to 17 step system. So it's just one after another. It's an entire process built out just for short sales. So typically we're going to team up with either realtors or real estate investors. So when we team up with a realtor, that means, let's say you're a real estate agent and you come across a short sale listing. There's a lot of agents out there who, you might be new to short sales. Maybe you've only done a couple or you've never done one before. Coming to me, a company like us, we're going to help you streamline the entire process. So we're going to deal with the bank. Like I mentioned before, I have a whole process to complete the short sale so that you as the agent, you could just relax and focus on marketing the property, serving your customer and doing whatever it is you do best in the transaction. You don't want to be waiting on hold with the bank and, dealing with all that chaos. Even if you're, it's kind of funny. I have a lot of experienced real estate agents who have done tons and tons of short sales throughout the years. And they'll actually use my service because they realize that, for them, time is money. They realize even though they know how to do a short sale and probably can get it done, it's just not efficient for them. It just doesn't make sense. They realize that their time is better used, looking for leads, meeting with customers, getting listings, so on and so forth.
Well, if I may,
Yeah, please.
how long does a short sale take, and how does your system, I'm assuming, help speed that up?
Yeah. So, look, there's a lot of people that are going to give you like the salesy answer to that, Joe. They're going to tell you, I'm the fastest ever at doing short sales, couple months. Really, it's an impossible question to answer. It really is, because it all depends on factors, right? How many mortgages are against the property? Is there an IRS lien against the property? That's going to add 2 months. So there's so many different factors, but the rule of thumb I use is between 3 and 5 months. If there's multiple mortgages or craziness, then I like to say between 3 and 6. But that's a good rule of thumb. But I mean, again, it's impossible to know until you're into the file. You run a title report and you see what you're up against. That's how you'll really know. Just to answer.
I have a,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I have a follow-up question. Does that change depending on what state or county, or does that have nothing to do? The state and counties have nothing to do with the length of time of short sales.
Typically, it doesn't matter. Now there's different states that have different foreclosure related laws, but for the most part, a short sale is going to vary depending on the type of short sale product it is. So like, that's actually a great question, Adrian, because let's say I'm doing a short sale and it's a conventional loan product, right? The seller is defaulting on a conventional loan. The short sale process is going to have less steps for that conventional loan compared to like an FHA or like a Fannie Mae short sale. I'm going to have to hit different, maybe 3 to 4 more steps to complete it. So like, it's going to take longer. But I mean, the area of the short sale typically isn't going to matter.
Cool.
But Joe, actually, just to answer the second half of your question is how we speed it up. The biggest thing with a short sale is follow up and communication with the bank. So instead of just calling the bank randomly and being like, hey, we submitted this document, where is it? Or kind of just like calling them, I break everything down into a system. So even the way I'm following up with the banks, like it's all broken down into a science of when I'm following up, how often and for what documents I'm following up on, if that makes sense. That's what kind of speeds it up.
We've tried 1 or 2 short sales, and of course we didn't know what the heck we were doing, and not knowing what to expect that was a difficult process for us. So it's good to know that you can break down steps.
Yeah, it definitely can get chaotic, especially if it's like a government back one. Like I said before, if it's like an FHA short sale, there's just so many more steps you have to hit, and the seller's required to provide more bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns. It just gets, it just gets messy if you're not prepared for it. It gets, chaotic. So besides real estate agents helping them with their short sale listings, we also help investors. So, I'm sure there's a lot of investors in this group. If you're a, landlord, you want to make an offer on a buy and hold, fix and flip, or whatever the case is, one of the key components that Joe actually just brought up before is, following up with the bank. And another thing is too, you want to be able to get a good deal if you're in, if you're making if you're trying to profit from the deal or keep it as a rental. I can't guarantee we're going to get the bank to accept your offer, of course, but one thing we're very, very involved in is the appraisal process. So that's the most important part. If you want to get a good deal on a short sale, when the bank is going to order a third-party appraisal, that is crucial if you're trying to get a good deal. And I'm very, very involved. There's a process to break down how we handle that with the appraiser. So, that's something if you're an investor and, you're unsure how to get the deal, or you don't really want to take on that legwork, we could help you with that too. We could take care of all that for you. And then obviously at the end of settlement, once you get the deal on the HUD, that's when you would pay the fee. So there's no cost to an investor up front. Wholesaler referral system. Right now, I work with over 630 wholesalers across the country. And they send me their dead wholesale leads. So what is a dead wholesale lead? Anything that makes sense as a short sale that doesn't make sense for a wholesaler. So these are going to be leads. Well, let me start here. So a lot of wholesalers, I know there's different ways to wholesale deals. You could double close, you could wholesale it. I get it. A lot of wholesalers, their main business model is to get the property under contract low and just assign the contract for a fee. If that's your main business model, that's typically the wholesalers that will refer us their dead short sale leads, because really you need a bunch of equity to be able to do that. You need equity in the property to assign the contract. And a qualified short sale, it doesn't have any equity. Actually, it has negative equity. So instead of that being a dead lead for you, you can't do anything with it, you throw it out. Instead of doing that, you could refer it to my business. We'll pay you $500 for every single lead you send. And then, we just keep you updated and you literally don't have to do any work. So you take a dead lead that you spent marketing dollars on, and, now you're creating a secondary form of income in your business, by referring the deals. So let's start with the basics. What is a short sale in real estate? Simply put, a short sale is when a homeowner's mortgage exceeds the as-is value of the property. The most important part in there is as is. I know, if you're a real estate investor or you're a real estate wholesaler, you're probably focused, when you're evaluating a deal, a lot of you are focused on, what is the ARV? What's this property worth after the investor fixes it up? And, I have a lot of wholesalers and, my investor partners bring me deals and they talk about the ARV. But when you're dealing with a short sale, the ARV is important, but not till later. The main valuation you want to deal with when a short sale, you want to focus on what is that property worth today, right now, without doing any work to it. So the ARV matters a lot less. So what does a short sale look like, right? Let's take a look at this example. So, you're talking to a seller and they owe around $300K to the bank on their mortgage balance. And then you're an expert in the market. So, before even going to see the property, that thing's worth no more than $250 as is, not ARV, as is. This is a situation where the bank may allow the seller to sell it short. So if the short sale gets approved in this example, the bank is going to let this seller sell their property for the $250 that it's worth. And then they're able to just get out of the situation and avoid foreclosure. So balance is $300, property's $250. Ideally, in a short sale, they could sell for the $250 that it's worth and just walk away and get out of the situation. What are the benefits of a short sale, right, for the seller? So it's very important to know, as an investor or, a real estate agent or whatever hat you're wearing in the deal, you have to understand, why should the seller do this? There's many reasons, but here are the main three, in my opinion. So the first is the deficiency judgment. It gets waived as long as it's done correctly. Joe, Adrian, and I were actually talking about this. I was in the call a little bit earlier today. A little bit earlier, I hopped on and, we were talking about the deficiency. And Joe actually brought up a great point. One of the main benefits of completing a short sale is that deficiency is going to get waived as long as that short sale is done correctly. So what the deficiency is that's the difference between what the seller owed the bank once they sold and then what the property sold for. So, going back to this example, the deficiency here, guys, would be 50 grand because that's the difference in equity, in negative equity. But in a short sale, on that short sale approval letter, it's going to say, at least it should say, you need to make sure it says, lender, let's say Bank of America, waives their right to collect a deficiency after the short sale is complete. So that's just a little tidbit there. If you're ever doing a short sale, I know we want to make money. I know we want to profit, but you want to make sure you're doing the right thing for the seller. So always make sure once you get the short sale approved, the lender is going to give you a written approval letter, a short sale approval letter. Make sure it says in writing that the deficiency is going to get waived. That's very important because, you never want your seller to sell the property and then all of a sudden, they get a letter from the bank that, they're still coming after them for that deficiency. We just don't want to do that to people. Second main reason is they can get out from under the mortgage. So again, I'll just keep using this example because it's simple. It's right here. In this situation, they're stuck with owing $300,000 to the bank. They cannot sell the traditional way. They can't sell, for a wholesale deal with a quick cash offer. They can't have their real estate agent list it and, get a traditional asking price. Really, they're stuck. Obviously, I know there's different ways to get the deal done. There's, subject to investing, lease options. I get it. But if none of those make sense for them, the only way out is going to be to sell it via short sale. So they could get out from under that mortgage that's just blanketing them. And then the third, and my personal favorite, is to avoid foreclosure. I mean, I think it's an amazing thing that, they're behind on their mortgage payments, running into these issues, and they're, they have a foreclosure cloud hanging over their head. And if the short sale is completed, you could help them get out from that situation and not have a foreclosure on their record. Foreclosure could be really damaging. Not a credit expert. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, actually. I'm pretty sure it's like 7 to 10 years it could affect you. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a certified credit guy. I'm pretty sure it's 7 to 10 though.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, whoever said that. All right. So whenever you're talking to a potential short seller, you're going to be on the lookout for 2 factors. Memorize these factors, write them down, whatever you have to do, because especially, earlier on in my career, I wasted so much time thinking I had a motivated short seller on the line. And I literally wasted hours, sometimes days, just to find out that, wait a second, they're not completely qualified for a short sale. First thing you want to look for is negative equity, right? Just like in that example, 300K balance, property's worth 250, they're underwater. They don't have any equity. It's negative equity. Okay, so that's number one. Once they pass, it's almost like a checklist. Okay, step 1, good, check that off. Now we move to the second factor, which is mortgage delinquency. Are they behind on their mortgage, or will they be behind in the very near future? The second factor is, I see a lot of people get hung up on this one. Now, if you ask a banker or you call up your, a mortgage department, the chances are they're going to tell you, hey, look, if you're looking to do a short sale and you're underwater, submit your application and we'll look at it. That's what they say. Here's the reality of it. Will they look at it? Will they review it for a short sale? Yes. But guys, if the seller's paying the bank every month, if the seller's not behind on their mortgage, they have a very low probability of the lender accepting a short sale. Think about it. They have, a bank has to be motivated. A bank has to have a reason to let you sell for less than what you owe them, because they take a loss. That's like Adrian lends me 10 grand. Let's say Adrian gives me a loan for 10 grand and I have to pay him $150 a month. So I'm paying him for 2 years straight, $150 a month. I'm on time. He knows I have a job with income and I'm paying him no problem. One day I call him up. I have a balance of 8 grand left. I say, hey, Adrian, do you mind if, I cut this loan short? I'll give you 6. Will you take 6? And say, obviously he's going to look at me like I'm crazy. He's going to say, Bob, what are you talking about? You paid me every month on time. You're an excellent borrower. I want my money. No. And he's going to hang up the phone. Essentially, that's the way a bank feels about it too. Because if they see your borrower, if they see your seller is paying them every month on time, and then they see they have a steady job with income, and their expenses are low, there's just no reason they're going to say yes. Why would they take a loss? The reason I tell you this is because it's going to save you tons of time, and then it's going to save your seller a bunch of time because the application process is very, very daunting. So long story short, negative equity is great, but make sure there is mortgage delinquency. Make sure they have that hardship. The bank has to see a hardship. They have to be certain that that seller cannot make the payments. All right.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you, one thing is them choosing not to pay, and another thing is that they can't really pay. So let's say that they do have the income, but they're just quote unquote choosing not to pay. So what you're actually showing is you're showing, for whatever reason now they had the money, but today they don't have the money, and this is why. So you're showing either an increase in, for whatever, an expense that's a necessary expense, right? And would credit cards and other creditors be necessary expenses, or no? They're not like, well, I'm going to let you pay your credit cards and not me. They're going to be like, I don't think so, right? What you're talking about is necessary expenses, right?
Susan, that's a great point, first off, because the bank isn't just going to let you go if they realize, oh, you have a job and all of a sudden you stop paying. They're not stupid. So that's an excellent point. And then for the second part of your question, so it all depends on who's doing the short sale. If it's an FHA mortgage or if it's a conventional mortgage, they're going to take all of your seller's expenses.
Okay.
So on a mortgage assistance application, the seller is going to have to fill out all of their expenses. So just like you said, credit card expenses go on there, auto loans, auto insurance, any and all expenses the seller has is going to go on that application. Whoever owns that note, whoever the owner of that note is, whether it's government backed, whether it's a private investor, they get to determine whether or not they're going to use all those expenses in their calculation. Okay. Just to give you a quick example, I'm actually working on a short sale now in Louisiana where we're having problems. The seller of the property has a laundry list of expenses. His expenses way outweigh the income he brings in every month. But it's a rural development loan. That's who owns his note. It's rural development. And the way they do short sales is they don't care, Susan, about his credit card bills. They don't care about his water bill, his heating. They don't care.
They don't care about his water bill or his electric bill? No, that's surprising. Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm just as, yeah, that's the way they do it. It doesn't make sense in my opinion, but the way they look at it is, oh, we don't really care. And he actually said this to me, which is pretty blunt, which I kind of appreciated. He was just being honest. He's like, look, we don't care about his other bills, because I'm yelling on the phone. I'm going, he has this, he has that. He's like, the guy just cut me off. He's like, we don't care about his other bills. That's not our problem. because he's choosing to pay them instead of paying us. So they just look at his income, and then they look at what the mortgage payments are, and that's the only ratio they use. So most banks are not going to do that. Okay. Most are going to take all the expenses, match it up against all of, the seller's income, and then make the decision that way. So that's actually why it's very, very important. Just a side note here, whenever you're doing a short sale, guys, you want to make sure when you're filling out that application, tell your seller, put every monthly expense on there. Tell them to think, anything they could think of: food, utilities, car payment, if they pay child's alimony, anything and everything they could think of, clothes, pets. You have to build up those expenses as high as you can. You have to show the bank, look, at my expenses far exceed my income. There's no way I could pay you. Very, very crucial are the expenses on the application. Crucial.
So Bob, when you're showing those expenses, it's not, you're not going to have to prove you spent $500 a month on clothes or something, or you do have to prove that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a great
Someone's
question. Yeah, typically you don't, believe it or not. Typically, they're not going to ask for different types of receipts. I guess they don't want to do all that paperwork either. I'm actually surprised you don't have to more. Every once in a while, you'll get a lender to look at it and say, okay, you know what? Send me a copy. Send me his most recent electric bill. We want a copy of his most recent gas bill, property taxes. But most of the time, you don't have to prove. You don't have to send them all the receipts. But disclosure, that does not mean commit fraud and make stuff up. You definitely don't want to put yourself, obviously, or the seller in that situation. Be honest, about the monthly expenses, but just push that seller to think. Any expense you have per month, put on that sheet.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to look at a traditional motivated seller versus a short seller. Here's what I mean by that. So whenever you're dealing with a seller, right, and you get them on the phone, and again, I used to do this constantly. I would take, just because they're a motivated seller, I'd get super excited and, but you have to decipher what type of seller you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with a short seller, you have to understand their motivation. So using those two qualifying factors I gave you guys before, we talked about mortgage delinquency and we talked about negative equity. Just because they're mortgage delinquent and they have negative equity, don't get too excited because you're not there yet. On paper, they're a qualified short sale, but it doesn't mean that they're an actual short sale seller. Okay. A traditional motivated seller needs to sell for quick cash. You guys know better than I do. I mean, that's, most of you guys deal with high equity situations, I would imagine. So, what typically motivates them is, it's a problem property and they don't want to manage it and deal with it, but they're motivated by cash a lot of the times, even if it's just a little cash and they want to be on their way. A short sale seller cannot be motivated by money. I'll say that again because it sounds weird. I know it sounds unconventional. They cannot be motivated by money because there's no profit to be made for them in the deal. And side note, when you're talking to the seller, you want to be very, very upfront about that. Look, as long as you understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that, you're not, there's no profit for you in this deal because the bank isn't even making any profit. That's how I like to put it. They have to be motivated by avoiding foreclosure and not wanting that foreclosure on their record. So, I talk to sellers all the time where, again, they're way underwater on their property. No way they could sell it in any other way. And they're months and months behind. They're in a pre-foreclosure status. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a no-brainer short sale. It's their only way out. But if they're just trying to get a really quick cash payday, it's not going to work. You know, let's say somebody, actually, this is interesting. Adrian, we were just talking before this call, lead that you and I are working on together. This fits in perfect. Adrian sent me a lead, you know, a guy that's in a short sale situation. He's behind on his mortgage payments and he's underwater. He doesn't have any equity. So on paper, it's 100% qualified, but he doesn't care about going into foreclosure. He doesn't care. So it's very tough when you're dealing with these people, but whenever you see that they're not motivated and the only way they would sell is just by getting a little cash payout, you have to move on. You know, it's tough. It's tough because you're investing in the deal and you know it's a good deal, but trust me, you need the seller's cooperation. And if they're just motivated by money, I promise you, they're not going to be motivated and they're not going to cooperate in the short sale. You have to move on. Were you going to ask something, Adrian?
Yeah, I've got a question. So I've seen on the MLS some properties, I'd say in the last year and a half, 2 years, listed as short sales. And in the notes, or the realtor sent me notes or something saying that I have to pay the seller, I think it was like $2,000 on top of whatever the property short sale was approved for. I never bought one of these, but I had never heard or seen that before. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So are you sure that's exactly what it said? Like you have to buy the short sale and pay the seller directly? Is that like?
That's the way I remember understanding it. I thought it was, I don't remember exactly how it was worded, so I could have that off.
So I mean, look,
Would that be a cash to keys? Cash for keys. Would that be a cash for keys situation?
It wouldn't be a legal one, I'll tell you that much. So I'll actually, no, because the cash for keys is great. Let me actually write that down. I'm going to get to that in a second because I want to go over that. That's actually called relocation assistance in a short sale. Okay. So Adrian, the one you're talking about, if that's what, so look, short sales are like any other deal. Sometimes people are going to do backdoor things just to get it done, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Typically you see stuff like that, Adrian, not announced on the MLS because that's illegal. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Susan, exactly. I saw your face there. You're like, what? Yeah. You absolutely cannot. Like,
so that was a bad realtor that put that on there, probably.
Yeah. I don't want to say that. I don't.
I'll say it.
All right. Cool. Yeah, I mean, my Lord,
Okay.
he or she could have got everybody, including themselves, in a ton of trouble. When you're doing a short sale, this is so important. If you're a buyer, you cannot offer the seller anything. That is considered a form of mortgage fraud, and they will come after you for it, for sure.
So on my side too, as the buyer, I can get in trouble for that?
100%. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Think about this. A bank is taking a loss. Going back to my example, right? They're owed 300 grand. That's what you owe me 300. I'm going to take 250. I'm taking a $50,000 loss. What if I find out now that I'm taking a 50K hit, but then you're actually paying 10,000 extra on the side to the seller. So the seller can't pay me anything, but they're going to make 10K on the deal. Put yourself in the bank's shoes. You're going to be like, hang on a second. So yeah, nobody could profit for sure. So, you know, I'm not saying do that. If anyone decides to do business like that, it's completely up to you, but don't, you know, post it on the MLS and just, you know, keep it far away from the settlement table is all I'll say if you're going to, you know, do anything.
Good to know. That's really good to know.
Which I don't suggest doing, by the way. Back to the cash for keys. I don't know who asked that, but that's a great question. So in a short sale, it's not like a deed in lieu of foreclosure. They're not going to give you cash for keys. The bank may offer the seller relocation assistance. The amount of relocation assistance, well, let me actually back up. The only way a seller is qualified for relocation assistance is if the property they're doing a short sale on is their primary residence. That's actually super important because I find a lot of realtors, investors, short sale people in the business, they'll kind of tell the seller what they have to tell them just to get the business. And they'll kind of say, oh yeah, I could probably get your relocation assistance. Then the seller's ears perk up, so they want to do the deal. So before you ever promise that, you need to make sure that they're going to be qualified to get it. So first qualification is they have to be the primary owner. Okay. If they own a property at 123 Main Street and it was their house for 30 years, but they're living in an apartment down the street, guess what? It's not going to qualify. It doesn't matter. They has to be their primary residence. And the amount of relocation all depends on the type of loan it is. This is actually really, really important because let's say you're talking to a seller and they have an FHA loan that they're behind on their payments, which, by the way, most short sales are going to be FHA loans. Just a little side note there. So anyway, let's say it's an FHA loan and they're behind. If you're 100% sure and they're 100% sure that they have an FHA loan, you can confidently tell them on that phone call before you talk to their lender, hey, I could get you up to $3,000. I can get you up to $3,000 seller's assist, because that's the max FHA allows. So if they have a VA loan, you know right there on the phone call, hey, I might be able to get you $1,500. Now, the way I word it, let me know if I'm going too fast because I see people writing. So, slow me down, interject if you need. But the way I like to word it is I like to be very, very careful. Even if they have an FHA loan, don't guarantee them you're going to get them $3,000. Don't do that because you can get them up to 3,000. Most of the time you could get them the max, but there's always certain situations where, let's say they have a high utility bill. Let's say they owe back taxes. You might have to, the bank might have to take $1,000 or $2,000 from that relocation assistance. So you never want your seller to be shocked and be like, oh my God, what the heck, Adrian, you told me $3,000 and now it's, $1,500. So tell them, look, I don't know what I could get you, but it could be up to $3,000. That's the way I suggest wording it, just for, transparency. So traditional motivated sellers. So does anyone have any questions? Because I know we just covered like a bunch of different topics regarding traditional versus short sale seller, the key differences. Are we good?
It's Rosemary again. So how about for USDA? Would that be considered FHA even though it's USDA?
No, USDA has their own process when it comes to short sales. They have their different process. Yep, that's a great.
And do they offer moving assistance as well?
So it has to be primary, and
Yeah.
So USDA rules are changing all the time. They change more than anything as far as their guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I did one, which was on a property in Florida, last time I completed one was about 3 months ago. And they gave the owner $1,500 relocation. But then I've done one where they're like, no, we're not offering that now. So they fluctuate. It's like if you guys go and look this up after and you see they don't, or like it's a different amount, forgive me. Last time I did one, they were the same as the VA. They do a max of $1,500 relocation assistance.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Yep, you got it. Anybody else? We good with this slide? Awesome. Okay. So whenever I meet people, a lot of times, and I tell them I'm in the short sale business, they literally look at me like I'm crazy. Well, one of two reasons. One, because short sales are just insanely chaotic. But two, they're like, dude, there's no short sales. What are you talking about? This is the hottest market ever, best economy, blah, blah, blah. So are short sales still relevant? Yes, they're relevant. I totally get that look, on a national scale, there's way less short sales now than there was back in 2008 through like 2013. I totally get it. But short sales are still relevant because remember, real estate isn't, you could watch Bloomberg TV or like Fox Business or like CNN Business, whatever, and they're going to give you, a market report of the entire country or the real estate of the world, but real estate's local. So short sales is a sub-market business. Like I technically can do short sales in all 50 states because the process is the same, but there's absolutely certain markets that have more short sales than others. 100%. Okay. And then another thing though, you have to remember, even in a hot market, let's say your market's on fire, there's still going to be a small majority of people. There's going to be that niche motivated seller that have to do a short sale. Remember, maybe they did a refi, right? Back in the day, maybe a disaster hit, maybe something happened to their property that's, unfortunate, and it made the property value go way down, and now they lost their job, and now their property's destroyed. So, the value, now they have negative equity, and now they're behind on their payments, even in a very hot market. Remember this too. This is a huge one. In every market, people do FHA loans. People do VA loans, USDA loans, which were just brought up. Until the government stops offering 0 to low down payment loans, there will always be short sales. Think about it. You buy a property, the VA loan, literally you're putting nothing down. So from day one, you have 0 equity. Even if you're in a red hot market, God forbid something happens, which, stuff happens, you get a divorce, some kind of disaster, you lose your job, you have no equity because you purchased, you purchased with no money down. Another thing is, even in hot markets, people overpay for properties. I think it's fair to say we're, seeing that all over the country right now. I think it's insane. I mean, I'll have, friends, childhood friends call me and, ask me what they think about buying a house. And I'm like, what I say is, if you don't have to buy, I mean, I would just wait it out, because people are paying crazy prices. The point I'm making is, if you're buying emotionally and you overpay for a property, even if it's a hot market, God forbid you can't make your payments a couple years down the line, you don't have any equity because you overpaid. So, distress situations, my point is, distress situations are never going to go away. Therefore, in my opinion, short sales are never going to go away. So there's always going to be those opportunities, even in hot markets.
Bob, right now we have a lot of people putting a lot of extra cash on top of an appraisal price. Going on what you're saying, wouldn't you think that in the future we're going to have more short sales, because we're not going to appreciate $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that people are putting down cash above an appraisal? And so that means they're buying it right at the market price of the loan. I mean, I just think that that's going to set up for some bad scenarios for maybe good for us short sales, that people are buying right at the market. I mean, they're putting every dime they have into it.
Yeah. You know what they say, history repeats itself. And, I wasn't personally around during the last crash. I was in high school. I had no idea what was even going on with the recession, but, I read about it and I study up about it. And, I look at the market swings, in the cycle of the last recession. And I mean, it's literally, it's almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's almost identical to, what people were doing in 05, 06, 07, leading up to that crash, right? They're just overspending, they're paying cash on top of the appraisals. And, I think a lot of people are going to run into trouble several years down the line, once the market cools down.
But definitely some similarities, but there's some different things too. We're not there yet, but at that time we were saturated with housing in the market, where we're not there yet. So that's a differentiation there, where there were too many houses. So when they went to sell them, the market was already saturated. So that was a problem. So right now, because, well, in Florida, I can't speak for every state because maybe there are other states, but in Florida, because there's so many people coming here. And then Lakeland, of course, appeared on some national newspapers and things. So Lakeland especially. So here, in this niche market,
Mhm.
because we have a shortage, but they keep building and building, and then now they can't keep up with the materials to build. So we have a shortage in building materials, and then the price has gone up so much. I think that's slowed down some of that. And with people doing repairs and things, so that's gonna kind of, slow things down. So that's one difference. But you're absolutely right as far as the pricing and the bubbling and all of that. That's definitely very similar. And people overpaying and a lot of that's very, very similar as far as similarities, but there are some other things that are a little bit different. And I think what you're going to see differently is that the banks lived through that 2008 and they got a really bad rep. And so did all of the, legislative bodies. And so I think that if they, hopefully they learned, quote unquote, some of their lesson. So if they come out with those programs, or maybe just refund the ones that are still in place, where they have those, programs where they can bail out the notes and they can do all of those programs that they kind of did at the very end. Whereas if they kind of get to the forefront of that, so I'm hoping that we'll hear some good news is maybe some of everyone who's in forbearance of those 12, and maybe even as it all rolls out to 24 months, who knows where it'll all end up, is that the government's where everybody kind of jumped out because they couldn't appraise. So that's the problem, is the banks couldn't refi those loans because people couldn't qualify for refis because the market had taken such a dive. Whereas like you, then that's, I mean, you're saturated, your business is there. So if it takes that really deep dive, but with the housing shortage, I don't know that it will take that dive, because it'll be just because of the sheer supply and lack of, supply and demand. So that's going to have a little bit. And of course, all this is, where we do our disclaimer, okay? Get you wrong. This is my personal opinion, So this is, so some of these things, these are the little bit of subtle differences, right? And over time, because depending on where it's at that time, but if depending on what the legislative bodies do, if they come out, and those of us who gonna buy notes and that, and we can go in there and refi all of those people that are in trouble and buy those notes, and Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, they'll pay us to reduce their, principal and do loan modifications and things like that, where the big dogs won't do that, Bank of America and all of those. If
Right.
they can flow some of those notes down to the rest of us, and we can redo that, where the big dogs won't, or maybe they will if the feds will give them incentive or incentivize them, if you will. So all of that will make a difference. That's the difference that I really think they learn their lesson. Like what you got is you got people with Countrywide sending in their payments and they're sending them back. I don't think you're going to see that. I mean, I could be wrong. I think that they're going to be like, oh, wait, because they got such a bad rep,
Yeah.
So you're going to see some of it, but not on that scale for all of those nuances, but you're definitely going to see a percentage of that for sure. Just because of the sure.
Very good.
Yeah, differences in the, sorry about that.
No, you're good. No, that's that's a great point. It's not going to be identical, and even if the market, that's actually a good segue. Even if the market doesn't tank, that's not what I'm talking. So like the market doesn't have to tank. I mean, just the sheer fact that a lot of people right now were very excited to buy, that they're overpaying. So that's going to put them in a situation down the road where, again, if they cannot pay their mortgage, they're not going to have equity to sell the traditional way. It's like the market doesn't have to tank for that to happen. So that's actually a really good point and a great segue. Anything else on this one? Okay, so let's talk about actually having that conversation and that dialect when you have a motivated seller that is behind on their mortgage. So now, I'm not a sales guru, just a disclosure here. I'm not a sales guru. I don't teach sales techniques. I'm just telling you how I personally deal with it and how I have success with it. So, hopefully you could take some stuff just from, just some stuff that works for me. Whenever you're talking to these sellers, I say here, ditch the hard sales techniques. I know there's a lot of, sales courses out there, and different scripts that kind of make selling almost robotic. not saying this doesn't work. I'm sure it works in some situations, in some industries. In my experience, when you're dealing with a mortgage delinquent seller, it's a very delicate situation. So what personally works for me is not to call them and say, hey, not to read from a script and, give them like an aggressive sales script. I find when people do that in this situation, you're like emotionally removing yourself from them. Because I mean, think about it. They're getting constant calls from their bank wanting the money. They're getting letters. They're getting aggressively pursued every day because of their situation. The last thing they need is a hungry investor like yourself calling them up and giving them an aggressive, robotic sales pitch. So I personally, when I'm dealing with a mortgage delinquent seller, I try to make it very conversational, and laid back. So that's why I put here, be mindful of your tone, right? You want to take, at least what works for me is a more laid back approach. Like I said before, they're getting aggressively pursued, letters, emails, phone calls. It's a very, very stressful time for them. You don't want to come off that you're taking advantage of them. Not to say that's what you're doing. And I'm sure most of the people in here are great people and you're not trying to do that, but your intentions and what you're coming off like, what you're sounding like are two completely different things when you're dealing with these people. So my suggestion is to take your foot off the gas, have a more laid back approach, and just do less talking and just listen to them more. The biggest thing, if you could take anything from this slide, the biggest thing I learned about dealing with mortgage delinquent sellers literally every day, most of them just want somebody to vent to. They're pissed off. They're pissed off at, the fact that they're in this situation. They're pissed off at their job for laying them off. They're pissed off at a family member for getting them in this situation. They're annoyed with the bank, with the mortgage company hounding them. They're just, they just want to vent. Let them vent about how crappy the bank service is. Let them vent about how, they call their mortgage servicer, I called Wells Fargo. I can never get them on the phone. They have me on hold and I hang up. Let them vent. Be their shoulder, be that shoulder that they need to just talk and let it all out. You just want to show empathy. You want to show empathy. Again, it goes back to not pressing the issue of you're just trying to get a good deal. You're just trying to profit from their situation. Just, do less talking and more listening. That's the biggest thing I could tell you about dealing with someone that's behind on them, especially people that are deeply behind, when they're deep into that foreclosure process and they're getting that foreclosure paperwork sent to their house. It's very stressful and they just want to vent. Be that person that just listens and just let them vent to you, and then see where you could fit in and help them.
Bob, I have a question.
Yeah.
But how do you start that conversation with them? That's usually the starting point is the hard part.
Yep. Totally agree. So, all right. That's actually a great question. So what I suggest never doing is asking them either how much they owe right away or asking them how much their monthly payments are. I don't know what it is about that question. Hey, what do you owe on the mortgage? How much your monthly, what are you paying the bank a month? I don't know what it is about that, but it just triggers people. So what I would do is I would start it by just saying, hey, so how like I typically do it is, Tony, let's say you refer me a short sale. I'll call the seller up and say, hey, Mr. Jones, Bob Vieira, Universal Short Sales, just got off the phone with Tony. He kind of briefed me on your situation. He said you might be interested in learning more about a short sale. What's going on in your situation? We'll see if we could help. And then you just let them talk. And then as they're talking to you, they're going to let you know what the mortgage balance is. They're going to give you the information you need. Just put it on them from the beginning. That's my suggestion is, hey, have you ever done a short sale? Have you ever heard of a short sale before? No, I never did. What is it? Well, pretty much how it works. The basic example is, you know, if it gets approved, the bank is going to let you sell for what your property's worth. And then you could get out of foreclosure. You're able to just walk away from everything. You know, does that sound like something that makes sense for you? Yeah, it kind of does. Okay, well, what's tell me a little bit more about your situation. We'll see if we could help you. And then just let them go from there.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else on this? Awesome.
Actually, I had something. I just wanted to make sure no one else had a question.
Fire away.
When I first started as a real estate investor, I would deal with some foreclosures. How do you listen and be empathetic without it dominating the whole conversation, without it getting out of control, for lack of a better word? And that's all they do is just complain, and it doesn't really, like, every time. How do you be productive with it?
It doesn't go anywhere, you're saying. They're just going.
Yeah, how do you, like, let them do that, but for a certain amount of time? But how do you be productive with that?
Okay. Yes. It's great. So what I'll do is, first off, I'll let them go. But then once you see it's kind of going off the rails a little bit, try to, I don't want to say cut them off, but try to get them back on track and say, look, you know, judging by your situation, I think a short sale may make sense for you. So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions here to make sure it's qualified and see if we could help. And then boom, these are the questions that you want to ask them. This is the info you need up front. Okay, so you have empathy here, right? Don't do hard sales pitches, you know, laid back approach, let them vent. And then the way you get them back on track is to segue into, okay, look, I want to make sure that you're qualified for a short sale and that it makes sense for you. And then now, as the investor or the realtor, you need to ask these 4 questions. This is crucial right here. Okay.
So what do you let them vent for, like, what, 15, 20 minutes? I mean, I need like a guide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a timer. You know, I mean, I'm not sitting there with a time. I don't know.
Susan.
I get very impatient. For those who know me really well, I could be sitting there. I'll be like, I'm like,
put yourself on mute, Susan, and let them cry all they want to. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. I'm sorry. I feel bad for you, but your 15 is up. So, you know, no.
No, I mean, like a guideline. I won't tell them that.
I'm only joking. You really just have to feel it out. You just have to let the conversation flow when you're talking to these people. You have to just let it flow. And like you said before, Susan, if it gets off the rails, you know, there's a difference between a seller, you know, venting to you about the situation that's relevant, about them being behind on their mortgage. Let them vent there. They need to get it off their chest, and that's going to build rapport. Let them go. There's a difference between that and them talking to you about like something completely irrelevant and just going off on a tangent.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. Once they start, I mean, look, you just have to have patience when you're talking to them. You know, there's not.
As long as it's on topic, we're good.
Correct. And the way you get them back on is, as soon as you could interject, you just segue to these questions. Okay. Because you want to make sure, hey, look, I think a short sale may make sense for you. A couple questions for you here. Okay. The first one, you need to know how many months they are behind on their mortgage. All right. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, how a young Bob in his career, I used to, you know, be like a fast-paced maniac and think everything was a qualified short sale just because they had no equity, not realizing that they need mortgage delinquency. Okay, so find out how many months they are behind on their mortgage. And the way I would suggest asking this question is not to blurt it out. Okay, don't just be like, hey, how much? Say, you know, give them the reasoning of why you're asking, so then they don't get offended. If the seller understands you're asking the question because you want to make sure that they're qualified so you could help them, they're going to answer any questions you have. I promise you that. You just have to be transparent with them. Don't just blurt the questions out, because then it sounds like you're just digging for information. Okay. And now another important point here with this first question. Okay. If they tell you that they're current on their mortgage, It's okay. Then you want to ask them, okay, you're current. Do you think in the near future, you're going to still be able to make your mortgage payments? So, yep, I'm current right now. Okay, great. In your opinion, in your situation right now, do you think you're going to be able to continue to make the payments to the bank? If the answer is yes, I have a great job and I'm making tons of money, not a qualified short sale. Not a qualified short sale. Remember what we said before about Adrian lending me 10 grand. I'm paying him every day, and all of a sudden I want him to take 6. He's going to call me crazy and hang up. What's that, Adrian? You were muted. Were you?
I was curious, is there a certain amount of months they need to be behind to actually start this?
Yep. It all depends on the type of mortgage. You know, I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but see, so many people think a short sale is solely based on the bank. It's not. Based on the investor of the loan. Whoever actually owns that note calls the shots. The banks are just the front people, you know, like the Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They don't own the mortgage mostly. Typically, it's backed by somebody else. So they're going to call the shots. A lot of times they're going to want to see 30 to 60 days. But again, it's going to vary. So, but my point with question number 1, how many months? If the seller says, you know, I'm current now, but look, I just lost my job. I'm hanging on by a thread. You know, I'm not going to, maybe I could pay for, you know, maybe I can make June's payment, but there's no way I can make July. That's a qualified short sale. That's the only exception of when they're on time with their payments, but they're not going to be soon, or they just had a hardship. That's a qualified short sale.
Okay,
Question.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky, if you will. So let's say you can, I mean, as you're dealing with these homeowners and they have other things that they need to prioritize, if they really are not going to be able to make their mortgage payments, there's a fine line there if maybe they need to prioritize that money for something else, if they really are going to go through with the short sale rather than not make their payments. But we're being recorded, right? So let's say, I mean, at that point, I mean, they probably don't have any type of emergency fund, because most people who are in that type of situation, if they're going to go in foreclosure, they don't have a mortgage, they don't have a emergency fund or anything like that. Would be, I mean, basically talking with them and looking at their whole financial situation. What kind of like full financial family look do you do right away? So maybe they don't want to make that payment. Maybe they need that money so they can have their car to get to their job, so they can buy food for their kids. I mean, let's face it. I mean, there are tiers of priorities, you know, so that if they're already in the hole, quote unquote, and they're going to do the short sale, maybe instead of making that June payment, they need to keep their car so they can get to work, so they can feed their kids, you know, or take their kids to school or whatever. So at what point, you know, I mean, do you do any of that? And
That's a great point. So that goes back to understanding their hardship. Let's say they say, you know, I'm current now, but I just had a hardship, you know, I'm not going to be able to make my payments. You have to understand why they can't make their payments. So, you know, using the example you just did, let's say they're paying every month, but, you know, they have other bills to afford and, you know, their overtime got cut. Well, you have to be able, if you're doing the short sale, you have to be able to leverage their hardship and explain to the bank, because that's a great point, Susan. The bank's going to say, oh, well, you know, they were current for the past 3 years. What's different now? So you have to make sure your hardship is strong, makes sense, and it's well put together. Okay. And that's actually part of the short sale. That's a hardship letter. That's where you would explain that. You would explain to the bank, hey, I know I was paying you, but my overtime just got cut. So there's no way I could feed my family, fix up the property, and make these mortgage payments. You have to let me out of the situation. Does that make sense? Okay, so the second crucial question you want to ask, has the lender started foreclosure? Okay, so if the answer to the first question is yes, I'm behind, you need to find out, have they started the foreclosure process? Again, I'll point the fingers at me. I'll bash myself here. In the beginning, I started so many short sales, not even thinking to ask the seller whether or not they're in foreclosure like a dummy. And then I ended up doing months of work, and then the property falls in foreclosure. So don't do what I used to do. Ask them in the beginning, is this in foreclosure? Did they start the foreclosure proceedings with you yet? It's so important because you need to know if they're in a pre-foreclosure, if they're, because if the lender started the paperwork, you're going to be crunched for time. You need to get it moving fast. If the answer to that question is yes, I am in foreclosure, they served me, your follow-up question needs to be, did they give you a foreclosure sale date? That question right there will save you so much time and aggravation, and you'll be able to immediately prepare in your head how you are going to buy this property by, stopping the foreclosure date, or I'm somehow getting this thing postponed. So you have to know that right away. Have they started foreclosure? Yes. Okay. Did they give you a sale date yet? And when you ask that question, you need to be clear, because a lot of people mistake it for serving them paperwork. Getting served foreclosure paperwork is the bank simply saying, hey, you haven't paid us, so we're going to start the foreclosure process on you. That's very different from them giving you a foreclosure sale date. The foreclosure sale date is they're saying, hey, we gave you every chance to pay. We took you through the foreclosure proceedings. This is the date we're going to auction your house to the public. There's a big, big difference, and you have to know that up front. Crucial question number 4 is, what is your estimated mortgage balance? Again, tying it back to the example I gave in the very beginning, you have to know the mortgage balance, because that's obviously going to let you know, hey, is this a wholesale deal? Could I purchase this cash as is to rehab, or do I have to do a short sale? So those are the 4 questions. I would suggest keeping them, write them down, put them in your Google Drive, wherever you keep stuff, just as a little cheat sheet, because they're going to save you tons of time.
How do you ensure that they've given you the correct balance? Because in my experience, oftentimes mortgages that are in foreclosure, the statements don't include all of the legal fees, all of the past due fees, all of those. I mean, that could be anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 more. So here you are, you're sitting there, and the homeowner, they have no idea what that is. Oftentimes, because they've sent people out there, especially if they're non-owner occupied property, they've sent people out there to secure it. I mean, they're charging all kinds of ridiculous, stupid fees for, put a lock on the door, like stupid money anyway. So they're charging all kinds of, exorbitant fees for doing this or that or the other. So they don't even know. I mean, in reality, the servicer has no idea even what that balance is. So how do you, for lack of a better word, kind of ensure, and this is just FYI to anybody who's listening there, to make sure, because oftentimes that statement, or even if you call the lender, they don't even know what the balance is to kind of ensure you have the best idea of what the balance is. How do you approach that in your world?
Yeah. So the reason you want to ask this question is just so you could get a really quick gauge of what, the strategy behind it is. You're 1,000% right. Sometimes the sellers are leaps and bounds off. It's like not even close. It's like, wow, like there's so many late fees, interest, penalties, just like you said, it gets tacked on to that principal balance, and then they're way underwater. But asking this question along with the other 3 is going to give you a really quick gauge. Okay. You're going to go off of what the owner says. Obviously, you're going to verify everything. I actually have 8 qualifying questions that I do with every short sale that does exactly what you just said. Once I'm authorized with the lender, I go through the list, and that's when you verify all that stuff. Okay. This is just to get a gauge of where, the situation is, and you can make a quick decision on, the investment approach you're going to take for the lead. That's all it is. And then of course you're going to verify everything later. Susan, to your other point, you're right. The only way to know the exact balance on a loan is by ordering a mortgage payoff statement. But typically if someone's like really underwater, the bank is going to, once you're authorized with them as a third party, you're going to be able to get the principal loan balance. And that's going to give you enough to work with, from that point, just having a principal balance. And then, if the numbers are really close, obviously get a payoff statement from there. But that's all stuff you're going to verify later once you're in the process. This is just the stuff you want to get quick from the homeowner so you could do it really, really quick in your head and figure out, okay, this guy has equity. Oh, no, it's got to be a short sale. Ooh, his auction date is in 3 days. Oh, you know what I'm saying? You just want to gauge it.
Well, in your head, I guess what I was really asking, in your experience in your head, if you see that they're a little farther down the road and you know that the bank has already gotten the attorney, they're not to the, to the sale date, but, once they've, engaged the attorney, that's a fee, if you will. That's usually,
Correct.
you in your head kind of add a little bit of, if they're close, a little bit of an amount so that well, that's gonna, by the time you get through this process, there's gonna be a little bit more, and you're like a little bit more of an educated guess if you don't see it on the statement yourself. It was just kind of a heads up to the newbies if they ever see that or that too, is that it might be a little bit more than what you think if the bank's already got an attorney involved. It's probably at least $5,000 or $10,000 more.
That's an excellent point. You better believe I do that on everyone. You're 100% right. So if the seller tells you they're 2 months behind, you probably don't have to tack on that many, that much principal, interest and all that, because it's only 2 months accumulated. But if the seller's deep into the foreclosure process and they're like over 12 months behind, or, sometimes it's several years behind, in those cases, on the phone, you want to start, doing the math in your head. Like, okay, the principal balance he thinks is 300, but God, he hasn't paid his mortgage in 2 years. So, all those fees are going to accumulate. It's going to be an outrageous amount. So yes, just use, I guess that's kind of common sense. How many months behind are they, is going to equate to, how much penalties, interest, etc. they're going to pay on that principal balance. All right, so before we talked a little bit about the benefits of a seller, what are the benefits of a seller to complete a short sale? Here, what are the main benefits of an investor? Why should an investor be looking to purchase or pursue short sales, right? Everybody says they're a pain in the butt. Nobody likes them. You have to wait forever, or all this crazy stuff. So probably a million different reasons. The two I love is, first, there's less competition. There's going to be less competition for the exact reason that I just said. Everybody complains about short sales. People literally ask me if I'm insane when I tell them I'm in the short sale business. You have to wait forever. The banks, sometimes the bank botches the appraisal and just wastes everyone's time, and they appraise it too high. So long story short, guys, there's going to be less competition because a lot of people don't want to deal with short sales. So if you have patience and you're willing to wait, you're going to weed out a lot of those competitors. Then a side note, not to say that you're going to market for short sales per se, but if you're hitting like a pre-foreclosure list or, notice a default list, a lot of investors are just going to pass on those leads. It's almost like they're like invisible, a lot of realtors and investors. So again, that just weeds out the competition when you're talking about lead generation. So less competition is one. Number two is you have the potential to get a really good deal. I'm not going to be one of these people that gives you like the whole sales pitch, like, oh my God, you'll get an amazing deal on every one. Short sales are great. Look, it's simply BS. It's not true. Just because a property is a short sale doesn't mean you're going to get a great deal. The bank is going to fight you tooth and nail, but there's a potential, if it's done right, if you do an awesome job navigating the appraisal, and you could support your offer, your cash offer, there's potential to get a home run or even a grand slam on these things. There really, really is. So,
And you also get equity sometimes. We looked at a house in Zephyr Hills before we purchased this one. That was a short sale.
okay.
Took 44 hours, like you said. Then this one came up, which we didn't realize it was a short sale from an investor because they foreclosed. And that one was faster because the bank already had it in their hands. So yeah, so you're right. And when we purchased this house, not only we got a USDA loan, we got some money cash back, plus the money that we put down, plus it had equity, like about 10 grand of equity.
Wow.
So yeah, we hit a home run for, and this is our primary home, but yeah, you're definitely correct.
I disagree with you. That wasn't a home run. That was a grand slam. It's tough to get equity after those things. That sounds tremendous. Good for you. That's a house you live in, you said?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Good for you. So there you go. And I didn't even pay her to say that, I swear.
It's a great testimonial right there.
Yeah. Yeah. This is recorded, right? So, all right.
Yeah.
So just to be relevant here, the post-pandemic environment, right? So obviously right now we just talked about, a bunch before that it's a very hot market. Overall, the floodgates aren't open on foreclosures and short sales, but you want to start preparing now because there are certain markets, as I mentioned a couple slides ago, real estate is a local business. So you want to focus, especially with short sales, you want to focus on submarkets. There's certain markets during this pandemic. This is a very different pandemic, than we have from the last recession. So certain markets are going to get hit much harder than others. Not an economist, and I'm sure you all have really smart opinions on this. What I personally feel is that markets that are very reliant on the tourism and like the retail industries are going to get hit the worst. Markets like Hawaii, segments of Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada gets pounded. Markets that are heavily reliant on tourism, I think they're going to have trouble bouncing back. Again, that's just my opinion. But the bottom line is no matter what your opinion on which market it's going to be, a fact is certain segments are going to get whacked way more than others. Okay. So the amount of mortgage delinquent sellers, people who are just struggling to pay their mortgage because they lost their jobs, obviously that's going to go up. And then think about how many people we're on the back end of this pandemic, guys, and there's still over 2 million people that are enrolled in forbearances. There's millions of people in forbearance programs, and we're on the back end of this thing. So that's an indication right there. And just a side note, because I mentioned it before and we talked about it, most of the people enrolled in these forbearance programs, they have low down payment mortgages. The highest percentages of people enrolled that cannot pay their mortgage right now, FHA, VA, okay? Little to no down payment mortgages. So those are the people that are going to be in trouble, unfortunately. All right. So my point is you need to prepare now. I can't stress this enough. If you start now, right, line up the NOD list, get your mailers ready, figure out who's the pre-foreclosure service provider you're going to use. Do all that right now. Don't wait, because I'm telling you, this is what's happening, right? Everyone is looking at stats. Real estate is all.
Can you elaborate a little bit? What's an NOD list and what kind of providers should we have ready? Kind of like.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, not so much like acronyms,
Sure.
like these.
Gotcha. So NOD means notice of default. Okay. Those are people who are, behind on their mortgage, but they haven't yet been, entered into pre-foreclosure. So what I mean by the pre-foreclosure and the notice of default list, simply just mortgage delinquent sellers. That's all that is. Okay.
30, 60, 90 days. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about list pendants? I really want to clarify.
List pendants. Yes.
Okay.
As soon as it gets filed, it's like 30 plus days before it's pre-foreclosure. That's when they get the notice of default.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I should have qualified that, clarified that. So the reason it's so important though, your competition, most of the people out there, they're going to be looking at foreclosure trends right now. Foreclosure stats for the past year and a half have been at a historic low. Okay. So everyone's looking at those trends, you know, and they're not thinking deep into it. Okay. They're just looking at the trends, following it. Don't believe the foreclosure stats right now. They're completely irrelevant.
Skewed.
What's happening is the government is propping everything up that you see right now. You know, the low interest rates, with the protection from homeowners, you know, they're protecting everybody from getting foreclosed on. So all of that, I don't want to call it fake statistics because it's real, but it's not a good indicator as a realtor or as an investor when you're preparing your marketing campaigns. It's not a good indicator because again, it's getting propped up. Once that FHA protection ends and the Fannie Mae protection ends, a lot more foreclosures are going to flood onto the market.
Plus,
So
people getting all that additional unemployment money, when that dries up, people in Florida, people are getting more unemployment that they made at their job. So they're going to have to go back to, if they had a job, less money, or maybe they don't even have a job at all. So that's really going to be such a game changer. I know people are getting unemployment who didn't have any money before. They're getting like $125 a week from federal unemployment who made literally little or no money before. So that's going to be such a game changer there for everybody.
Exactly. 100%. So get a jump start now. Launch.
What were the providers that you were saying? I'm so sorry, Bob, because
No. It's a great question. That's what I was getting to next. It's an excellent question. So the NOD list, I don't personally hit those, so I can't really vouch for anybody. Pre-foreclosure list, I have had really good success with REDX. That's RED dash the letter X, REDX. You'll pay, you know, they have different kind of packages. You're going to pay around $60 a month. Okay. And then if you want to add an additional county within that state, so, you know, let's say you're doing Polk County, so that's 60 a month, but then you want to hit Miami-Dade or something, you could add that on because it's in the same state for an additional $10 a month for every county.
I believe, Liz, do we not get that too on, oh my goodness, I had a brain cramp, what you just talked about?
On REIA Fact. Yeah, I believe so. You'd have to double check that, but I think so, yeah.
Okay,
cool. Yeah, I could personally vouch for them. I've used them a lot in the past. You know, they do the skip tracing for you. So, you know, you just sign up and they have
and all kinds of letters and all kinds of many other services too with them. So, yeah. Okay,
yeah, and just to remind everybody, if you are a PCREIA member, or actually it doesn't matter, even if you're not a PCREIA member, if you want to use REIA Facts, then you can look at the bottom of the email we send out and you can see how to go on to their website and you get a big discount. I don't remember how much it is, but you do get a big discount if you use the initials PCREIA on there.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Join on us. Yeah. Just go for it.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the wholesaler referral system. I mentioned this in the beginning. So we work with a little over 630 wholesalers nationwide in our database. Essentially how it works is, you know, whenever leads come in, and really this isn't just wholesaling, it's any business. It's the same, you know, it's the same system. Whenever you're marketing for deals, the majority of the leads you get in, if you're specifically a wholesaler that assigns contracts, the majority of the leads you get in, you know, they're not going to fit in your business model.
Right.
You know, unless you have the greatest marketing system on the face of the planet, you know, 100% of the leads are not going to fit your system. I mean, it's a numbers game, you know, and that's in any business. So for all those leads that don't make sense, again, they're underwater and behind on their payments. If you could find another way to do the deal, do it 100%. But if it doesn't fit anywhere in your system, instead of throwing those leads out or putting them in a dead leads folder or whatever you do, I have a system. It's a very, very simple system. You refer the deal, you give a warm introduction, refer the deal, and then, we do the short sale start to finish and then cut you a check at closing, literally for every dead lead that you send. The way I like to look at it is it's another tool in your tool belt. I mean, just in my business personally, in my short sale company, every lead that comes in isn't a perfect short sale. So I have tools in my tool belt. I have other companies, service providers, investors, where all refer my dead leads to them. You want to be a transaction engineer. You want to try to make every deal fit somehow. And really it's nice to help the seller too, because if you can't help them, there's not many people that could say, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I think I do, I can't help you personally, but I have a friend or a partner or like however you want to say it that may be able to help with your situation. So, at the end of the day, it feels good to still be able to help the seller, and you're, monetizing leads that you're losing money on. So ebooks. I write these short ebooks. I have a bunch of them. The two that came to mind, one of them is how to profit from your dead leads. This is tailored to the wholesaler referral system. What I just went over in the last slide. My ebooks are very short. They're 7-8 pages. It's a PDF, and I send it to you right to your email. So for the ebook number 1, profiting from those dead leads, creating that additional revenue stream, I gave you a 3-step process right there. You just go to my website, which is just my company name.com, universalshortsales.com, hover over contact us, and it literally says wholesaler contact form. Fill out your form. I'll ask you how we met. You just put, the REIA, and I will send you that ebook. It's a very, very easy read, to the point, and it's got great information. Second ebook is kind of going off of the couple of slides where I talked about what works for me when I personally deal with mortgage delinquent sellers. Again, it's not a sales book, but I have success with it, and I share exactly what I do. I gave you a couple of tidbits in the slides, but the ebook that I have, the short ebook, it elaborates more on how I handle those calls. I'm going to give that ebook out in the session, the meeting after the meeting, because I'm going to be there. So I'll shoot that over to whoever wants it. You guys just let me know. And it's yours. And there's obviously no charge for any of those. So.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. So everybody that's so don't miss that tonight, because that won't be repeated or recorded. So definitely be on there tonight with us. Yeah. And obviously I'm happy to answer any questions over there as well. If you want me to elaborate on how I'm talking to these sellers and, locking the business up, I'm an open book, so feel free. Great. Thank you. All right. And now it's open for any questions you guys have. I think I'm good with time. I'm a little under. Oh, yeah. No, you're perfect. This is beautiful. Yeah, you did great. So does anybody have any questions? I have a few that came in to me directly, but I see Dory is in the weeds over there raising her hand. Dory, what you got for us?
Hello there. I have a question about the appraisal you're talking about. Houses, and there are so many people that do not take care of their houses. They don't fix things. The roof is leaking, so they just stay out of that room, and it's disgusting. And how do you get the banks to understand that a mega renovation is needed to get to the right as-is value?
Yeah, I actually have a very specific process that I use. The biggest thing there, I would say, that's like a whole different topic in itself. I would probably take up too much time if I went step by step of what I do. But the biggest thing I could say, so it's not so much, Dory, it's not so much convincing the bank. you need to tell the story of how you came up with that offer to the appraiser the bank hires. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because the bank, they're just going to look at the appraisal. The bank isn't in the business. They don't care what the real estate value is. They have no idea. The bank is hiring a third-party neutral appraiser, and then they're going to listen. They're going to go off of whatever that appraiser tells them. So
you have to prepare this before the appraisal and give it to the appraiser.
100%. What I like to do is I like to shove it in their face without shoving it in their face. So I'll get the appraiser's email before we set the appraisal. Then I'll send everything to them, make sure they got it and they read it. And then I'll give a printout of the supporting documents to the listing agent who actually meets them there and gives it to them again. So I'm kind of annoying without being like directly annoying, I guess you could say.
Do you get contractor estimates or do you give your own estimate?
Get a contractor estimate. Get a contractor estimate. And if it's a contractor you use a lot, they should do it for you with no problem because you give them business. If it's not a contractor you use, I like to pay them. Like if it's not a contractor I use a lot, or, you know I'm going to like flip the deal, or maybe I'm just a third party processor or something. Let's put it this way. If I know the contractor, the chances are they're not going to get the work. I'm going to pay them for their time. So, I'll pay them $100 just for their time to go down there, type up a repair bid, take some good pictures, and you want to pay the contractor for their time, in my opinion. Just so they'll be
Yes, if I can add to that, one of those that I did, and I have not done very many of them, so I'm definitely not an expert, but one that I did, we have a corporate sponsor that is a inspector, and he's an investor, and he's very investor friendly, and he knows what our objectives are, whatever that is, if it's to sell retail, or like in this case, we need to give a report to someone telling them how bad the situation is. He is fabulous about writing up that report, charges a very minimal amount for what the possibility is. And his company is called FYI Risk, and they are fabulous for that. So, and Bob, he will do that in any area down here in Florida. So if you have something in this area, he's your guy.
I was just about to ask you, what are markets? Because that sounds awesome.
Okay, I'll put his information over in the chat for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
I was going to say that one time I had an appraiser actually give me the opening and said, well, we're appraising the house, and it was like, I don't know, 150. And this was a few years ago, but we're not experts in estimating the damage from the mold and the skylight leaking and so we suggest that you get that information. So then I got it afterwards and submitted it to the appraiser, and he dropped like $100,000 off the appraisal.
Beautiful. That was on a short sale?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you get an appraiser that's like that, whoever that appraiser is, good for him, because, he was just being honest with you. He wasn't pretending to know how to estimate. So
mostly they're not like that. I think in your way is better to get them at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to protest it.
Yeah, no, but if you guys totally did the right thing there. If you see an appraiser's like that, hop on that, take advantage of that. Send him the repair bid and everything, and he's probably going to use it. So you guys ace that. Question. So that FYI Risk, is that like a contractor, or like, are they a licensed contractor, or what are?
They are licensed and bonded. They've been inspecting for many years. I don't know if he's specifically a GC, but I do know that he has licensing, and I do know that he's bonded, and I do know that banks have accepted his report. So he's a full out, and he does everything, even roofs. Gosh, guys, maybe you, Adrian, do you remember, or Susan? Anyway, he's very thorough.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think he does termite too.
Inspection company. Sorry, Adrian.
Yeah, he's amazing. You have to, as Liz said, you have to tell him what you want, what the purpose of this inspection is. If you're buying it, I always recommend people going with him because you'll learn way more than he's charging, because he'll teach you everything that he's looking at. Every time he points at something, you ask him why is he pointing at it, and he'll teach you everything.
Okay.
And so if it's, if it's for a short sale, he's not going to ever cross the lines where he's out of integrity, but he definitely will do his best to angle the pictures to help you out. How about that?
Yeah, he'll just, it sounds
How
like he'll
about,
cover all the ground. If you're telling him you're going to rehab it, he'll.
Yeah.
yes, yes. And for instance, like a regular inspection will just give you sort of a cookie cutter, thing. But if you tell him, look, I'm doing this for short sale purposes, we need to inform the banks of exactly the condition of the property for negotiation purposes, then he will not fudge it, he will not make, but he will emphasize the problem and go into real detail about it. So you
He
can
may
bet on
zoom
that.
in. He may zoom in on a picture that is a problem instead of taking it from 15 feet away.
Right,
So then,
right,
those things
exactly.
that you would normally, when you're doing your rehab, you would have to like, oh, wow, they'll take that deeper dive. So that isn't something you would deal with later during your rehab. You'll have all of that up front. So you'll get all that detailed stuff that you,
Right.
yeah.
And they also, I believe they also, if I remember right, he has sons that are licensed to do handyman work and stuff that could do work on it later if that's what your goal is as well. Very, very, very upstanding, great family-owned business for several generations. So highly recommend them.
Yes, for sure.
And affordable. And you tell him you're PCREIA because he's very, very attached to PCREIA. So definitely let him know that, Bob. If you're calling from out of state or out of the area, he'll also give you preferential treatment there.
Okay.
Bob,
You said anywhere in Florida though, the inspections?
Yes, as far as I know. You might check with them to make sure, but that's as far as I know, yes.
Bob, I tried the link for your book to sign in and I don't know if I wrote it down wrong or the link wasn't working. Could you put it in the chat or maybe try it while we're still online to make sure that it's working before we get off? Because I want to make sure everybody can get it.
What's happening? It should work.
Yeah, maybe I typed it in wrong.
Okay.
If you'll make sure it works and then if you'll put it in the chat so everybody can take advantage of that. I wanted to sign up for my list. Yeah.
Okay, and while you're doing that, Bob, we had a couple of other questions that were really good. Let's see. We had one from Ginger. Ginger, are you where you can unmute yourself and ask? This was a very good question for Bob. Ginger. There she is. Okay.
I had to flip my phone around. Well, actually, lovely Rosemary, she kind of reminded me that if the seller files bankruptcy, then it will stop all foreclosures. So I guess at that point, there wouldn't be a motivated seller, maybe.
I see. No, that's an awesome question. I see a lot of people use that strategy just as a way to like postpone their foreclosure really quick. So they'll go down to the courthouse, file the bankruptcy paperwork, and then legally, and I'm not an attorney, by the way, I'm not an attorney, but once the seller does that, they have to stop, the bank legally has to postpone the foreclosure. So typically people that do that aren't actually like, they don't want to go through the bankruptcy. They just file paperwork, pay the filing fee, and then that's a strategy to postpone the foreclosure. Did that answer?
And to kind of piggyback what you said too, not only they go down that route, they also try to do a loan modification to kind of buy themselves some time. So those are two routes that I've seen done. I've actually had people come to me to help them fill out back in the day when I was doing bankruptcies to help them do that. But those are two routes that some people do that. And I explained to you, Ginger, just ask questions, because like Bob just said, you never know. They're just doing it, just buying themselves some time and praying that something could come along to kind of save them from sinking.
Mm-hmm. So I guess at that point, they will disqualify from the short sale to the bank.
Yeah. So with the loan modification, they're definitely going to disqualify. So Doing a loan mod, if it gets accepted, absolutely right. You could postpone a foreclosure that way. The only issue is you have to opt out of the loan mod and go through that process in order to start the foreclosure, because you can't apply for both at once. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This is an awesome meeting. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
wait a minute, I missed that last comment. You have to opt out of the loan modification for the foreclosure?
Yes. Okay.
So
So,
why would someone opt out of a loan modification for a foreclosure?
well, if they I mean, there's a bunch of reasons. I mean, sometimes people get, think that they could afford the property, and they get a loan modification started just to realize, like, hey, I think I screwed up. I just can't keep this thing.
They can't really afford it. Even the new payments, they really just can't do it. Gotcha. Okay.
But on that note, and I know this from personal experience, I'm not an attorney either, but I know this from personal experience that I've seen it happen. I have seen people get loan modifications and only get like $25 off the difference, which is nothing, let's face it. But they try and then believe it or not, apply again because they get out of, because they're not able to maintain the loan modification, they become a default, which starts a foreclosure procedure. And that's what he's talking about. In order to get a short sale, you have to be kind of you have to show that your hardship. So if you're in a loan modification, you're able to make your payments, you can't show hardship. So you have to start the foreclosure process for you to get a loan a short sale.
I understand.
So that being said, I've also seen people where they had, like I said, the loan modification is only $25 or $50. It's not really breaking the bank here, and you're still struggling because either a spouse got sick or they were still unemployed and they're underemployed at this point, or whatever the situation is. So believe it or not, you could do a loan modification pro se, which means you don't need an attorney to do it. You just have to contact them, do the process, fill out the paperwork, asking for everything what they're asking you to do, giving them a letter of hardship. And that person actually got another loan modification from the first one because the first one was they weren't able to pay. Now, that being said, they didn't know this, that after they did that, there's a possibility they may get a second loan. So where they had a first loan, that loan modification now became a primary, or your what is it, your primary mortgage, and then they have a secondary mortgage. The difference is, yes, you do have a secondary mortgage, but they're not accruing fees and so on and so forth. So once the first one is paid or they sell the house, then all the debts have to be settled, paid for at that point. Did I confuse you?
No, actually, Rosemary, I actually bought one subject to like that. The homeowner had no idea he had a second.
No, they don't sometimes.
He showed me his payments from New Res with his loan balance of 72,000. Until I got to the title company, there's a second FHA second sitting there for 29,000 something, where they pulled him out of foreclosure and he had it. He's like, I didn't know.
And there's a lot of people that have been in that situation that didn't know. So that is correct.
He had no idea. He said, I don't know. I didn't know anything about that. Are you
exactly
sure? Well, that's when the title search came back, it was sitting there, and that's what it was. It was exactly what you said.
And then unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to track those. So you're playing like, okay, who's the person holding the title to that second loan? And it's like, fine, where's Wally? No one owns up to it. You don't know where it's at, and it's like pulling teeth. And well, you know how wonderful government is. It's like nobody knows what the heck's going on, but yet you have to pay them. Well, how can I pay you if I don't know who has it? So it's one of those things. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
But yes, that does happen.
Very good. Okay, now go ahead, Bob.
Because that's actually an amazing point. Whenever you're dealing with someone, if you guys ever talk to somebody on a modification, right, that's in the middle, let's say you're talking to them and they're doing a mortgage modification. Rosemary just reminded me of this. That is an excellent source of a follow-up lead, okay? Because a lot of those modifications, just as Rosemary just said, they either get declined or their payment isn't any, it's like, $25 off and they still can't afford it. So just because you talk to a seller and they're on a mortgage modification and they're happy and it got approved, I promise you, follow up with those leads. It's going to take you a couple months, but a lot of those leads end up being deals. You know, because just because it's a mod doesn't mean it's going to be a discount. So
you're right about that, Bob, because someone in our group back in 2008, you know, when everything was crashing, unfortunately, one of our members went through this where the bank was going to foreclose on them. It already started the process, and they started getting the modification in place. And while they were talking to the modification department, and the modification department was assuring them that the foreclosure had stopped, okay? The process had stopped. In fact, it had not. And so as they were going through it, and they had to do all kinds of things, you know, a lot of hoops they had to go through, they thought they were getting somewhere, but it was over several weeks. They were negotiating this and getting paperwork and proof and money and all kinds of stuff. Eventually, anyway, the bottom line is the foreclosure department was actually pushing the foreclosure forward and eventually took the property. Weird things can happen like that as well. You need to always be following up on stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good point with the follow-up. I wonder if that would be something to make a good, like you look for foreclosure, would be loan mods, like list pendants. I wonder how many of those don't work out in this current market or whatever. I wonder. What's the percentage of those you think that fail, loan modifications?
Rosemary seems like she would know that.
What was the question?
What do you think, what percentage of those loan modifications don't work out, you think?
So I honestly, I don't know. The key is, and I was told this by an attorney because I went to court with this person, and ironically enough, an attorney comes running the elevator because he didn't want to say anything in person, but he's a foreclosure attorney, bankruptcy attorney, and he runs in the elevator. He's like, listen, he told the person that I went with, he's like, listen to her. She knows what she's talking about. I was like, what do you mean? I don't, I'm just figuring out if you keep putting the paper and pushing it and putting it through court, you know, that's key. He's like, exactly. You know what you're doing. I'm like, oh, cool. But the one of the reasons why a lot of people are not successful with their loan modifications is because they don't fight.
Yes.
Honestly, they give up, they don't fight, and the key is if you keep good records of anything legal, you document name, the time you spoke to the person, their position, what title they have, and a date, and the actual discussion. When you have to take that to court, it makes a world of difference. And that's kind of the way I helped my friend out. I was like, listen, this is what we need to do. Now, not only we need to do that, since they're already submitted to the court, we need to submit to the court that we've tried everything in our power to contact them and to come with some type of negotiation. And that's how I helped them win, not one, but 2 loan modifications without an attorney as a pro se. Because of that, because I kept on it. We're going to give up. No, you're not going to give up. Submit the paperwork again to the bank and see if they could come up with something. They need to contact you because you're trying to do your due diligence, and you're also submitting it to the court. That way the court knows what's going on, because they can't just up and say, oh, I'm going to close on this property tomorrow. They have to go through a process.
Yeah.
Go through it. Basically, it's like an eviction. It's like what you do in an eviction. You can't just get up and throw down the door and pull people out of their houses.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same concept. It's just, you just have to, the person has to do the due diligence. And what I have seen happen is people just totally give up and not fight for their house if they really want to keep it.
I think that's
so these are good ones for us to follow up on. That's what we need to make sure, that you always follow up on them regardless.
Yeah.
Now, Bob, someone else has let me know that they weren't able to get your book on your website. So
guys, I never had an issue here. So like, walk me through exactly what's happening. Could you not log on to the site, or?
Yeah, the
I
site
don't know.
didn't come up when I typed it, when I did it. I can't speak for anyone else. So I'm opening my internet. Can you put it in the chat, and I'll click your link. If you put it in the chat over there, I'll click it.
Yeah,
and
I think
that'll work.
what's happening is maybe there's too many people going on it at once. I don't know. I'm gonna try this again though. I've never had this issue here.
Maybe it's too much traffic for your,
That's what I think. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I could guess is it's just too much traffic at once. If you want to give your emails and I could email you the ebook, if you want to leave your emails in the chat so I could see what's going on with my site. But yeah, I think it's just too much traffic maybe like at once. I don't know.
Or is there a link you can give me and I can send out to everyone that was here at the meeting tonight? Is that something that will work or not? Maybe not, because you need to.
No, I could, yeah, whatever you think works, that's fine.
I had to do a Google search to find you because I couldn't do it directly like that either.
Could you get on the site though? Because that's the issue. You guys can't get on the...
Universal Short Sales, I'm on it right now.
Oh, you got on the
but she had to search for you. She's saying that.
But I had to search for you. I couldn't do it through the link.
Well, what was the link that can you cut and paste the link?
Yeah. I'm gonna do that now. Yeah. Gotcha.
Rosemary did it. She did it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good. I'm just glad she.
There we go.
You got it.
Yep.
And then once we're on your page, where do we go to?
You just hover over contact us. It's the tab.
Somebody, you put it in there. There you go, and you put our name in there.
That's it. And I'll put the link here.
And it's it has, there's no ebooks here though. What do we click on?
He says you send him a note. Thanks for the PC.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yep.
There you go. And you can pay me the $50 after you're done, Bob. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Venmo good?
Is that your direct contact as well?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So now back up to, let's see. Oh, Jimmy Green. Jimmy, can you talk to Bob and ask him your question? Because that was a really good question too. And I like it, Bob, when they ask, if they're here and they're available, because sometimes they have things to add to it and everything.
Fire away.
There you go, Jimmy.
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Enjoying this. This is great.
Hey, Jimmy, thank you.
Thank you. What did you qualify as a warm lead? Is that somebody that's really wanting to take it further, or is that somebody that's not so warm, not so we're just going to toss them away?
Yeah. So so there's two main factors you want to look at, right? Do they have negative equity? And then are they behind, or will they be behind on their mortgage payments? If you guys can't make a deal out of that because there's not enough equity on it, then those are the leads you could send over and monetize.
So what if they really don't want to go any further with us? So
you mean if you like tick them off and like lowball them or something?
Well, yeah, probably. Exactly. Well, I mean, even if you we propose this another solution for them, and but whatever reason they might meet your qualifications, but they just I'm not the closer for them, I guess. Do you want those leads too, or?
Typically, I mean, in a perfect world, I love a warm lead. I mean, I think we all would. Those are the ones that are the best to convert because it's just, it's transparent. Hey, look, I can't help you, but Bob does shorts as he can. Worst case scenario, I'll still take the lead. I'll still try to work it. Obviously, it's just a lower conversion rate, because and at that point, I'm just some like random guy calling them.
Right. You want somebody that we've already built a little rapport with and do like you said, a warm handoff, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, if there's, if they're just not having it, or like the call didn't go well, which, stuff happens, I'll still try to make it work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a few of those too. So, I rubbed them the wrong way at first, but okay.
It happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What I find actually is like a good transition. So like, you don't tick them off, is once you realize, like, once they're giving you enough information and you realize like, there's no way I can make a deal out of this. There's just not enough equity.
Right.
Maybe start the transition sooner than later. Like hey, look, I can't help you. Just kind of be like transparent about it.
Okay, I like that. Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, got it.
But you know, that's a great question, Jimmy, because let's say, because you're not as experienced as Bob is, right? Or none of us are. So
Right.
if we're on the phone with somebody and we just can't figure out how we could make it work in the moment, doesn't mean that Bob can't, or he doesn't have other questions to ask that could open a door up we're not familiar with. So I would say, I would love to say that I could leave every one of those phone calls in some kind of form or fashion, that it leaves a door open for me either later to call them and say, hey, I know I wasn't able to help you with that, but I actually know someone that might be. Would it be okay with you if I gave you his number? Because he really does some things that are amazing, you know, and that gives like another touch, and then you can hand it off to Bob or something like that, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I like that.
Yep. Yeah, like what I find on those calls is if like, you know, because think about it, most investors are kind of just gonna, you know, okay, like the deal doesn't work for me, click. You know, they might not be that rude,
Right.
that's the essence of it. But just like Liz just said, if you explain to them, hey, look, I can't help you, but you know, Bob may be able to help you with a short sale. You know, would it be okay if he reaches out? You know, you could pick his brain and see if it's right for you. You know, so putting
You
it
know,
that.
in fact, it just reminded me that really actually what I do is nothing different than a lot of other investors do, but and you probably do too, Jimmy. When I first start talking to anybody about any deal, I'm basically coming there and letting them know, even if I can't help you, I may know someone that can. So let's get all your information. Let's see what I can do for you. And so in other words, I become their problem solver. Even if I'm not the one writing the check tomorrow, I may find the guy that is for them. So that first part of the conversation way back in the beginning will behoove you when you get to that point too. See, that's how I would look at it.
I like
That's
that.
actually
Yeah.
That's actually a great setup there. I like that a lot. I'm actually going to tell, you know, because a lot of wholesalers will ask me how to transition. I'm going to steal that one from you, Liz. I hope you don't mind.
You got it. I'd love for you to. I stole it from somebody else for sure.
The other thing I would say here is, I bet after people do a few of these become some of the most profitable per hour deals you do. So we have a very similar relationship with someone that buys the mobile homes just to remove them. And those are some of our most profitable per hour deals because we only have about 15 minutes in it. So it's the exact same scenario as you're talking about, Bob. Yes, I would rather buy them, but if I could do one of those every day, I would make more money.
Oh, I see what you mean. Just by handing it off to Bob, you're saying that's your, oh yeah, hey, yeah.
Because you have so little time in it. Obviously, we
Good
can't
point.
do one of those every hour. Or if you can, that would be the perfect system. But to me, it's about how much can I make in the least amount of time. And referring stuff is usually a very high dollar per hour or per minute stuff.
Totally agree.
Which is why your book is going to be called The Lazy Investor. We've already talked about that. Yeah.
I mean, it is partially why I'm at the beach right now.
Yeah.
It's not working harder. It's not working harder. It's working smarter.
Yeah.
There you go.
High five, Adrian. I'm right there with you, bro.
Adrian, I'm getting hungry watching you eat, man.
Oh, I thought I moved it out of the screen. I just
man,
finally got real food.
Chugging along, man.
I thought we were back at the Village Inn, and I got hungry.
Anyway, you did a great presentation last month in the Tampa Bay, meeting. That was very good. Yeah.
I had. Oh, I don't, Liz. Do you have any other questions that people posted?
Yes, we do. We do.
Well, I'm not going to cut mine. Go ahead.
Okay. Rosalie Young, if you're available, this was a good question over there that you had as well.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, thank you for your time. This has been really helpful. I'm, fairly new into this, haven't really had much dealings with foreclosures, but I do have someone asking, about the liens that might be with a foreclosure, whether it's an HOA or a construction or mechanics lien. So if you're trying to purchase a foreclosure and you have a lien attached to that, how does all of that work? Like, who's responsible for those liens at that point?
Yeah, you guys have awesome questions. So I assume you mean a short sale, right? Not a foreclosure? Who's responsible for a short sale? Is that your
You know
question?
what? Let's go with a short sale.
Okay, yeah. Because I don't want to because like a foreclosure might be different. I don't want to speak out of turn. So a lot of times in short sale situations, you're going to run across, look, if someone can't pay their mortgage, a lot of times they're going to have back taxes. They're going to have an IRS lien. They're going to have, everything, maybe a mechanics lien. So what you want to do is you want to try to get the lender. Okay, so this is the way a short sale works. Think of a HUD, right? The buyer and the seller. Everybody knows what a HUD looks like. The seller side of the HUD in a short sale is technically the lender. So all the expenses on the seller side, the lender of the short sale is responsible to pay those. So what you want to do, if there's a mechanics lien or whatever there is, back taxes, after you run a full title report, when you're preparing your HUD to submit to the lender, okay, put all those liens on the seller side of the HUD. That's what you want to do. So then what you're doing essentially is you're asking the bank to cover those liens for the actual seller of the property.
So basically you're cleaning the title of the property by doing that.
They have to give you clear title. Otherwise you can't get clear title if they don't clean up all those liens.
Exactly.
Otherwise they can't give you clear and equitable title, which is what you need. Yeah.
Correct. But don't mistake what I'm saying for the bank is going to agree.
Right. No, you gotta ask.
Everything, you guys know how to negotiate, come in strong and then see where you go from there. But
since you brought that up, how does that affect you and what you're asking? So let's go from the jump. Okay, here we are. We're starting out, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we're going to talk to the bank. Okay, so now we're looking at the whole picture. So we have the home, we have the IRS liens, we have the other liens, mechanic liens, whatever liens, code enforcement liens, everything you can think of, soup to nuts, everything, right? All kinds of stuff on this home. So before it can get sold, so when you're presenting this picture to the bank, the lender, are you presenting this as a whole picture with all the liens, the IRS, all of these other liens? And this is one single entity and this is why I need to pay you this so I can pay these other people, or are they expecting you to short everybody?
Present it all at once. But if any of those liens are considered secondary mortgages, then they're going to expect you to short the other people. They're going to expect you to short that lien. So like, let's say one of those, you just did a laundry list of liens in your example. Yeah. Okay. Let's say one of those liens is a secondary mortgage with PNC. Let's say it's a HELOC. Okay. It's a HELOC for 20 grand. Because that's considered a secondary loan against the property, they're not going to cover that. They're going to probably offer between $2 and $6 grand on average, as a settlement for that secondary mortgage. Okay.
So they're going to expect you, because if they foreclose, they would wipe them out, or they would have to. Because if they foreclosed on the homeowner, then they would wipe the second end.
Yeah, correct. If they, look, the incentive for a secondary lender to take less, like if I'm a secondary bank and like you owe me 50 grand, you're probably thinking, why the hell would I take 6 grand out of 50? But it's that or nothing, because if that property forecloses, you don't get anything as a secondary lien position. The primary lender gets it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So really, you have a lot of leverage in a short sale when you talk about that. You have, it gives you a little bit of leverage to process or negotiate with that second lender.
Okay. But that is your responsibility then, because you're not waiting to the closing table to negotiate all that. You're not like, okay.
No. Definitely do not do that. So like that question was so good. It brought up another really, really important factor in a short sale. Never submit an offer to the bank until you have like run a full title search, because
Ooh, good point.
yeah, if anything is off, even if it's $1 off, let's say the bank issues you an approval letter for 100 grand, congratulations. But then something comes up on title before closing of a $5,000 lien. Guess what? You have to go through the whole process and get that reapproved. So the numbers have to match up perfectly.
Oh, that's a
Now-
big one right there. Wow.
Yes.
Now with
And like I said a million times, I have made that mistake like a dummy and screwed the whole thing up, and people wanted to kill me. So that's how I know that.
So Bob, can I ask you one more question, just real quick in a nutshell?
Yeah.
Foreclosure with liens. What is the focus of getting paid off with the foreclosure? It's the primary mortgage?
Yeah, so I'm not really like a expert on foreclosures, but I know like the primary mortgager is typically going to have like the first position. So if they're foreclosing, they're the ones taking the property back. So the chances are they're not going to pay the other liens.
No,
Gotcha.
when they foreclose, they wipe them out. Why would they pay them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect.
Did that answer your question? I don't know if it did.
It did, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Doesn't some of that depend on what the lien is?
That's true, because the code enforcement, some liens don't get wiped out, they're superior.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Some of them are superior. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on this. I think in some cases the property taxes are superior. Am I wrong on that?
I think so.
it goes with federal. It goes federal, state, county, then local. That's kind of the way
they're superior to the mortgage
pecking order. Yeah. Now going back to a question that Susan said, and I think you mentioned, in terms of the foreclosure and the secondary mortgage. I forgot what the question was. I'm sorry, never mind. I forgot what the question was. I tried to ask it like 5 times.
You can come back. You can come
drew a
back.
blank. Sorry.
Does mind if I interject?
Okay.
Quick? Is everybody okay with the website now? Was that issue cleared up? Could everybody get on it now?
I used Rosemarie's link. So it said contact after your website. I just went straight to your contact.
Okay.
Filled in the paper, it worked.
Everybody's good now? I think, I don't know, it just might be too much traffic or something. Is everybody good though?
Yes, I took what Rosemary had and put it in the Google thing, and then it went right there and I got it in. So we're good. So if you didn't get it, anybody on the list, then try it again.
Okay. Yeah, I never had that happen. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, now Ginger had another question. Ginger, do you want to expand on that a little bit, or you want me to ask for you?
Hey, I'm here. I'm sorry, I keep flipping my phone. You mentioned we must have patience, and if we have time to deal with it. So I'm just thinking, what would the time frame be at its worst for a short sale to work out for you? Because let's say if I'm getting my lender ready, right, getting my funds available, what is the time frame that I would have to wait, or so that I know when to have my money readily available for it? Or if I had a bank loan myself, if I went and got a loan.
Yeah, I get this question constantly and I hate answering it because it's like the most honest answer is it is impossible. Rule of thumb, best case scenario, I say 3 to 5 months. Look, let's say there's an IRS lien against it. Let's say, okay, ready? Let's say it's an FHA loan that's defaulted, okay? And there's an IRS lien that the seller owes. That right there, you cannot do an FHA short sale with an IRS lien against the property, okay? You have to go through the whole process of discharging the IRS lien.
You have to remove it first.
Exactly. Well, you can't really remove it. You have to temporarily discharge it. Exactly. So you essentially have to negotiate with the federal government to get them to temporarily lift the lien just to do the whole short sale process. Like so my point is something like that could take up to a year. I mean, that's going to take a long time.
Something like that, you'll be in retirement.
Yeah, but listen, if you have a bank, if you're making an offer, and you're getting a loan from a bank, typically, a savvy bank isn't going to like do their inspection and do all that stuff they'll typically do until they have a short sale approval letter. So I don't think you'll have to worry about that, Ginger, to be honest with you, because they're not going to, spend money on an appraisal, do all that due diligence until they know this thing is approved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to wait until the end anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
guys,
just to add a,
wants to know a timeline, but I just, I guess I'd be BSing you in a way if I gave you one. It's really case by case.
no, but you know what? You're doing a little better than an attorney. An attorney will tell you that same kind of answer, which is, well, it depends. Okay. And then blah, blah, blah. But they never give you anything or an example of what could or wouldn't. At least you're giving some examples and you're showing what's possible or not possible, giving us an idea of something. So thank you for not being a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I just like to be honest about it, because like I feel like so many people will like overpromise and underdeliver, like, oh, I could bang these things out in 60 days. Like you just don't know until you have the file. You have to open the file and just see what you're dealing with, and then you could figure out a timeline.
And like you said before, and has been mentioned before, each scenario has little criteria that you don't know about, little loopholes or skeletons in the closet that you don't know about till when you pull, for example, you go to the title company and you pull title on a property to make sure everything's it's free and clear, so to speak, or you have all your lenders and next oh, this one came up we didn't know about. So it's a case by case. It's so different from house to house. Even if you're using the same bank, you could be having 10 deals with the same bank, and each deal is different.
Yep, correct. And this in the modification business. What if it's a perfect short sale? It's very easy, very straightforward, but the seller is taking forever to get me documents. A lot of people, they're not organized, especially people in that situation. They're in a chaotic state of mind. So, if I need 90 days most recent bank statements, not everybody has that accessible. That could take that takes some people weeks to get me that. So that alone could hold up a process.
That alone could be the reason why I want you on speed dial, and I don't want to ever have to follow up with these people again. I want you to do that because you got your system in place. Thank you very much.
So Bob, do you get a letter that allows you to talk to the bank directly? Permission from the is that part of your process?
Third party authorization. Yep. Yeah, you need that in writing. Now some banks will, they'll be like, oh, why don't you just call us and like have the seller on the phone and don't do that. Send them in writing. It'll take, 3 to 5 business days, 3 to 7 business days to process it. And then you're good. You don't want to have to call the seller, get them on the line every time. They'll want to.
I know what helped me with the bank, because sometimes you call and you'll get different ones at different departments and they'll claim that they didn't have that or that third party authorization. I also get a limited power of attorney in the few that I have done, and that really helped me because that gives a little more zap to your power.
A limited power of attorney, you said?
Yeah. Because they pay attention to that a lot more, and then I'm almost, it's just a lot stronger with them.
Yeah.
Any department.
The limited power of attorney. So, like, what are you allowed to do?
Okay, so in a general one, then it means you're representing that person and can make decisions on their behalf for almost anything. But a limited one is going to limit to you, and you can even list the address of this property or property identification in the limited power of attorney as well. And so that way you can assure them that you're not getting their permission to sign their name on anything. It is only related to this property that you can get information or you can deal with it or whatever.
And I think that's incredibly important to be able to talk to the bank directly. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
Bob, I can help you with that as well.
You can't do anything.
Yeah, I was going to say that Rosemary probably has a great one that she could work with you on that.
Can I say
Okay.
something?
Dory's got her hand
Go
up.
ahead. Oh,
About
she
what-
does. Thank you.
About what Ginger was saying, as an investor, I made a mistake early on with 2 short sales that both took 10 months. And I tried, I only have so much money. And so I'm trying to have the money ready. When the deal comes through, I want to be ready with that money. I would say, forget that. Go do other deals. And when it comes through, then go get the money.
Yep.
Right.
I would
Yeah,
have
that's a very good point.
raising your capital, like if you're raising private funds, to fund these deals or whatever the case is, I would have to agree with you. I mean, it's not an ideal answer. I'm sure like a realtor would like probably want to strangle you if they heard you say that. They'd be like, what do you mean? But yeah. I mean, you can't just rely on that because there's nothing short about a short sale. So, I mean, you're going to wait.
You brought up realtors, and there was a question sent to me about that. So I don't know how this scenario would work, but I'll just say it this way. So how are realtors handled during all of this? If there's a realtor involved somewhere, do they still get a commission? Do they not get their commission? Like, how does that work?
That's another excellent question. Yeah, the bank. Okay, so remember how we talked about a couple of minutes ago? Think of a HUD. On the seller side of the HUD, the bank pays all of those closing costs. That's who you're asking to pay.
Yeah.
Part of those closing costs is the broker's commission. So once everything's approved, the bank pays that 6% commission to the listing agent. So it's just like a traditional sale, and the seller does not come out of pocket. The bank covers that.
So I missed it, Bob. If we send you this for $500, how do you get paid?
Yep. So okay, if I'm the third party,
Mm-hmm.
I get paid on the HUD. Very similar. So like instead of a wholesaler fee, how like they get paid by the end buyer, I get paid by the end buyer on the HUD. Usually it's a flat fee if I'm third party. It'll be like $6,000. If it's a higher end deal, I'll get paid more, and then obviously I'll pay the wholesaler more. If it's a market where I want to buy the property, and there's a larger profit for me, obviously I'm not just going to throw you 500. I'll work, we'll work like an equity position out, or just up the referral fee. That's like the cleanest way to do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
What if you get a really good deal on it and I want to buy it? Like, can I have an option? Like, if I throw you some and I want to be like, hey, Bob, if you get this really worked out really well, I want the first option, first right of refusal, if you will.
Yeah. So, yes and no. All right. If you want to buy it, heck yeah, it's your deal. You brought it to me, you buy it, but you have to be the buyer from the very beginning, because the bank isn't going to do their appraisal. They're not going to initiate that appraisal that we talked about before until the end of the process. That's like the last step in the deal.
Okay.
So, like you have to come in as the buyer. You can't just say, hey, Bob, let me know. Let me know how it goes. If you can get them down, like I can come in, because we won't be able to work the short. Like there has to be a buyer in order to work the short sale to the end.
So Bob, that actually brings up a question that I have as far as what I'm going to invest into a short sale.
Okay.
If the appraisal's at the very end, which could kill the deal, I'm going to pay for title searches, inspections. What am I paying for?
I pay for the title search. That's like a part of my fee. I cover that. So anything title related in the beginning of the process, obviously, because if you're buying it, you're going to have fees. But all the prep work that like gets involved in facilitating the short sale, those are all business expenses for me.
Yeah, but what happens if the deal gets killed at the end with the appraisal?
You don't pay me anything. It's very similar to how a wholesale deal would be structured. You just pay me on the HUD. On the buyer side of the HUD is a closing cost, only if it goes through. So I don't charge like, by the month or hour, like whatever that. Yeah.
It's a bit of risk on your part.
There is, but yeah. You know what? I would rather it, that way though, because if you're, there's some companies that will charge like, they'll charge like flat fees up front, and they'll have the seller pay them, but I figure that's motivation to get the deal done. It's a little bit more motivation.
That's
So
very
I had,
investor friendly.
Yeah.
I had another question in terms of that. So, and you just brought up something that triggered something that happened in the past. So if, in order to do a short sale, you have to have a buyer for the bank to start the short sale process, you said, correct?
You have to submit an offer package, correct?
Oh, okay. So that being said, what happens, like in my scenario where I put in an offer packet, they took 40 forevers. We got to see the house we're currently in. And of course, we let that go. So the short sale process stops with that person unless they find another buyer to start the whole process again, then, correct? Did I confuse you?
No.
Okay.
I'm just like trying to think about how I can answer it without giving like a long-winded answer. So if you come in the deal and they deny you, sometimes the bank, like if there's another backup offer ready to go, like if the agent or whoever has like another backup offer ready to submit, you may not have to start the process from scratch. But if the offer doesn't work out, you back out and like a bit of time lapses, then yeah, you're probably going to have to start essentially from scratch, because all the documents have to be updated, like the assistance application. Let's say the seller submits like pay stubs, they're going to have to submit new pay stubs to be current. You know what I'm saying? So like the
I feel so bad now that you're saying that, because that's what happened. Like I said, they took forever, and then we're like, and when the bank finally called us to say, oh, by the way, okay, the bank approved your offer, we're like, it's too late. We're sitting in closing with the house that we're purchasing right now. Like they literally called us on the day of closing for the house we're in now. So now I feel really bad. Poor person.
No, I'm kidding.
So you can't really swap buyers. So it isn't like you could at the last minute, someone can't step in and be, so let's talk about it as a,
Sucks.
so
I'm sorry.
So if we put it, can we buy it in a land trust as a short sale? Can we do that? Because we buy ours in Florida in land trusts. Is there anything against that?
So when I make offers on short sales, it's always under my acquisition LLC. So I don't do trust, but I've talked to people who do that. So I know people do it, and then they'll just like sell the trust for like a profit or something. Sell like what is it? They'll sell a share in the trust.
The beneficial interest of the trust.
Yeah. That's it. That's an benefit. Yep. I've never done that, but I've definitely, I definitely know other investors that have.
So who's
we've done that once, and no, we wanted to keep everything very above board. The wholesaler negotiated everything. We did I think like a 10-year lease from him, prepaid rents, and we had an option to buy it that we could not purchase it within 90 days because he signed paperwork saying he was going to be the title holder for the first 90 days. We had a third-party trustee, Mac. I know he was on here earlier. So we used a true third party, not just a friend. We wanted a professional trustee in that. And we purchased it 90 days later so that he was legally the owner. He got his money. We had all the paperwork signed. And we had an assignment of beneficial interest ready to go. That's how we did it.
That's a great idea. So you just gave him prepaid rent for the money is what you did.
And one of the big reasons we did that, we were doing a 1031 exchange. So we were tied on, and that fit into the 1031 exchange qualifications. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Liz.
Very good.
We've started a lot of discussion. Are we going to stick with this meeting, or did you?
Yeah. I'm trying. Okay. I'm trying to get in there. Hello. Okay. So here's the deal. This is why you guys want to be a member. If you're not a member of PCREIA already, this is why you want to be, because we are now going to close this down and then we're going to start the other meeting. You do not have a link yet because I'm not sending it to you till I officially end this meeting. I made that mistake last time, and some people got there faster than we did, and it would kind of mess things up a little bit. So with that said, I know you guys got your value tonight. Let me tell you something. This was a great meeting, Bob Vieira. Really great meeting. In fact, what I want to do, Bob, is there any way that we could talk you into, since I got you in front of everybody, it's going to be hard for you to say no to me. See, this is the method to my madness. I'm thinking that it would be great if we could have like a breakout session, like a class, because we're trying to provide some additional classes this year for our members. If we could have just like a short class with you about this, because a lot of people won't want to do it, but there are some people that want to do it or want to know what the process is. And I think it'd be so valuable to all of us. Is that something you'd be willing to do for PCREIA and for our group by any chance?
Love to, for sure.
So,
Awesome.
so Bob, are you going
Okay.
to join us after hours? Because I've got some more questions. I got a whole area I want to pull down.
Good ahead of time, Joe. You missed it.
Yep. He's already committed. He's committed all the way
Excellent.
around. Man, we got him on recording now. Okay. Very good. Woo! This is awesome. Okay, this isn't going to stop. It's going to continue, but I do need to say how great this evening was, Bob. We thank you so much. You have definitely lived up to our motto, which is investors helping investors. And that's what tonight was, 100%. There was nothing here that you were trying to pitch or sell us, except that a great partnership with you possibly in the future if we find something. So thank you so much. And listen, everybody out there, in the true spirit of PCREIA's motto and in our mission, go out there and seek out others to support and help them, make a difference in someone's life. Thank you so much for inviting us into your home tonight. Be safe and God bless. And we are here for you. So we will see you at the next gathering. Everybody give Bob a big virtual applause. Man, this was good. Good stuff. Okay, I'm officially sending you guys. I'm sending you guys now the link. It takes a few minutes for it to get there to you. As soon as it does, the meeting will start. Okay. Thank you. We'll see you later, Bob Vieira. See you, everybody.
You guys had great questions. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi.